A dire situation developing on the Colorado River. 7 western states, the federal government, and Mexico are all grappling with continued lower flows in very low reservoirs, as you know. On the Colorado River, lower basin states like California and Arizona, they're particularly looking at having to make cuts. But what about New Mexico? As an upper basin state, our situation is very different. RLN senior producer Laura Pascas checked in with the state's Upper Colorado River Compact Commissioner, that's Estevan Lopez, about New Mexico's share of Colorado River water in a warming world.
Commissioner Lopez, thank you so much for joining me to talk about the Colorado River today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. So I want to start just with the basics. People hear about the Colorado River and maybe don't think about New Mexico necessarily. Where does New Mexico fit into the larger river basin and allocations?
Well, the Colorado River spans probably 7 states in the U.S. and then goes into Mexico. And in New Mexico, the San Juan River is the river that most people are familiar with. That's a major tributary of the Colorado River, and that's where we get some of the Colorado River water apportioned to us as a result. We also have much smaller amounts further south in the Silver City area with the Gila River and the San Francisco River, but those are much smaller by comparison. In terms of how much we get, first, the Colorado River was split between the upper basin and the lower basin. The upper basin being comprised of all of the area that flows into that watershed above Lee Ferry, Arizona, which is right below Glen Canyon Dam near Page, Arizona. And that's the upper basin. And it's, for our purposes, we generally think of that as the states of New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, and Utah. The lower basin is the portion that flows in below that, and that's comprised primarily of flows in Arizona, California, and Nevada. And then, as I mentioned before, Mexico has some rights to it as well.
Okay. I think it's accurate to say that there's a crisis on the Colorado, particularly on the lower Colorado. How would you characterize the upper basin's situation right now?
Well, the upper basin situation is, we, for really decades, we've been naturally shorted by hydrology. In other words, we don't have a lot of big storage reservoirs above us that we can rely on, like the lower basin does. So if you happen to live within a tributary that gets a lot of snow, you might get a full supply that year. If that tributary or that basin doesn't generate a lot of snow that year, oftentimes we're short. So while the upper basin was apportioned, that area above Lee Ferry was apportioned 7.5 million acre feet under the 1922 Colorado River Compact. We've never used that much, in part because we haven't fully developed, but oftentimes because we're just shorted by what Mother Nature gives us. Recently, we've been using something like 4 to 4.5 million acre feet rather than that 7.5 million that was apportioned to us collectively in the upper basin.
So cities like Albuquerque and Santa Fe diversified away from sort of sole reliance on the Rio Grande and groundwater and have built up a lot of infrastructure to take advantage of the sort of Colorado River basin allocations and, probably built out on the promise of that water. What risk does that put these cities at as the Colorado River and the Rio Grande are really facing the same challenges?
Well, you point out a really important point. Albuquerque and Santa Fe currently rely significantly for their water portfolio on San Juan Chamo water. That's water that's coming from the San Juan River, goes through tunnels under the Continental Divide and is delivered into the Chama River and then flows downstream to the Rio Grande and they're able to use it. As you pointed out, with recent hydrology, already in the last few years, they've been shorted In the last couple, probably by 40% in terms of what their contract amount was or is. But that if the climate continues in the trajectory that it's on, is likely to continue. There will probably be shorted year to year. Some years, in good years, they will get a full supply. This might be one of those years, hopefully. But the greater risk is if the upper basin as a whole, we are under the 1922 compact. We have to make sure that there's at least 75 million acre feet that flow to the lower basin. We can't use water such that they don't get that amount. Well, the hydrology is making that a real challenge. And to date, we've never hit that threshold. And we're still probably a few years away from hitting that threshold. But we do have to think about how we manage our water such that if we hit that threshold, we can still meet priority needs, including things like San Juan Chama contractors' needs in Albuquerque and Santa Fe and elsewhere.
Looking ahead to this year and maybe the next 5 or 10, what are you hopeful for on the Colorado River?
First of all, I'm optimistic from one regard. It's a kind of a daunting challenge, what we've got to do. On the other hand, for perhaps the first time that I'm aware of, the nature of the problem is acknowledged across the board. All 7 states now acknowledge it, whereas back 10 years ago there was not an agreement that we actually had a problem that we had to work out. Right now, everybody understands the nature of the problem. Everybody's kind of has a common objective in terms of how much we think we have to reduce uses and so forth. How we do it, we still haven't figured out. But for that reason, that makes me optimistic in that we've kind of finally defined the problem. Now we have to work through it. Mexico, they recognize just how tenuous a situation it is, and they are committed to working through these problems with us. So I think those are the things that I think make me optimistic about this. It is a challenge. Everybody has their own interests that they're trying to protect, but in the end, I think we all recognize also that if we don't do what we have to do, either the Secretary of Interior will impose those shortages unilaterally, or if she doesn't, nature will. If we continue on this path, we've got to figure out a way of managing the river at this very, very low end. All our operating guidelines for the river assumed reservoirs that were going to be full or close to full and that's the way we've always operated. Operating at these lower end of the reservoirs, we need to have new management criteria, and that's our challenge right now. We need to figure that out by probably August of this year, and then immediately after that, we've got to start renegotiating the 2007 guidelines, interim guidelines, which expire in 2026. And so we've got to negotiate a new set of guidelines going forward, a completely new set of guidelines, but one that hopefully will be informed by this new climate that we're seeing and this reality that we're likely to be operating with a lot less water than we ever had thought we had before.
Well, Commissioner Lopez, I appreciate you talking with me today. This has been really helpful.
Well, I appreciate this opportunity.